Hi guys, I'm Tanya Scott and this is my creation castle. This is my YouTube channel and I am your focus hypnosis that is being restarted, yes. And we're just gonna explore my favorite things, and I love the mind, and there's something that we have to really cover if you want to really understand the mind, and it is trauma. You have to understand what PTSD and CPTSD is in order for you to really gain an understanding in why, if you believe in the law of attraction, and the manifestations don't really work that well. You see everybody else going really far and you are still stuck. It's probably because you have some unresolved trauma that you need to clear out, because you will always manifest from that scar tissue of it's an energy system, and there can be scar tissues and holes in those places, but there's scars that you can't see, and you will manifest from the filter that's on your manifesting lens, basically. And so you want to understand what PTSD is. Now, the reason I'm covering so much about, what I'm devoting one day a week to narcissism and to healing PTSD, kind of more of like negative personality types. We all have shadow and negative personality types, especially if we're in high stress times, all the way to if we're in high stress, we probably aren't our best. We've all had not everybody has their shadow years, and some more than others. But it can always go back to, at some point, childhood trauma. All the way to if you've been in an abusive, like a domestic abusive relationship, a narcissistic abusive relationship. All of this plays in on the mind. Now, I am your focus to be the hypnosis that I want to start, that I'm really wanting to be focused on, is how to heal trauma, how to go in and heal those messages when you are locked in, especially when you've been bullied or targeted by abuse and you can't seem to break it, and you're just this victim. I wanted to help break that victim mentality. It took me a long time. I was stuck in that victim, and I was annoying, but I didn't know how to get out, and I just got darker and darker and darker, and I just finally didn't want to live. I didn't want to. It just felt this dark, heavy place. There's no joy. So that's why I think this is important. Now, hypnosis has helped me, which is amazing, but I knew about hypnosis for years. So something had blocked, and that's why I wanted to talk about narcissism, because it can literally knock you out of your own sense of self, and you are no longer you at all, and it takes years, and sometimes you never come back. So I want to help those who are needing to find themselves powerful and stop holding on to the wrong. Like, I was so angry, and I got so angry that I destroyed myself. So destroyed myself because of something somebody else had done to me. And then I just kept attracting more and more of the same. And then the more it happened, like the more abuse, the more trauma. Trauma begets trauma unless you break the cycle. And the only way to do that is you've got to forgive, and you got to let go. You got to self-love. You got to literally find it in your heart to forgive that person that did all that terrible stuff to you. I know you might not be in the capacity to hear that right now, but I got to tell you, it is everything. Literally everything. It's your superpower. And we'll get into Even if you talked to me last year, it just clicked for me. So because I really honed the darkness. And so now being on the other side of it, I can tell you why holding so tightly to that darkness and that being right and justified and anger and wanting justice to be served only hurts you in the long run. And I love you. You deserve so much better than that. And I'm going to share my story through these things, but first I think we should really dive in and understand all things narcissism, CPTSD, PTSD, how it affects the brain. Because if your brain is broken, trauma and abuse breaks the brain. It literally fragments it. I mean, if you guys understand about MK Ultra, obviously. If abuse fragments the brain, you feel broken. If you can get some of that, if there's a way to go in and rewire that, all of that negative and faulty wiring, the programs that got inserted, if there is a way to go in, straight in to remove the seeds that were planted and then insert the good stuff, would you do it? I think you would. And I gotta tell you, I just really want to, what helped me is I literally started I just realized how dark I was, and I just wanted to die all the time for years. I mean, it lasted for years. It was intense. But it was finally when I realized I was still living under the spell of the narcissistic abuse and the narcissist and the sociopath and the choices that I've made from that, which is all surrounded by even more narcissists and more sociopaths and more abusive people and more bullies and more targeted people. It was when I finally realized that I even had an entire career that I created at the behest and the kind of the influence and the suggestion and kind of in a forceful, but in a very, even my career choice for 10 years was under the influence of a person. But I allowed it because I was the kind of person from my past abuse. I listened. I wasn't happy about it, so I would act out. But I listened and I would do it, even though I didn't want to do it. I would still listen to an authority over me because I was bred and groomed to be small, looking up, and to worship the narcissist. And so then, of course, you get involved with more narcissists and more sociopaths, and pretty soon you are broken. You're not just broken, you're broken. And that's where I had gotten to. So I don't want to go into too much. Obviously, I'm probably talking too much, but this is my narcissist video blog. And so we're going to go into PTSD right now. And I think this is a very, very important subject. So, dude, I'm so excited about this that I might even do 2 narcissist videos on Wednesdays. I might overload you. Dude, I told you I'm ADD. When I get excited about something, I'm all in. And you don't just get one, you get a lot. So let's go on. We're going to talk about 12 signs of how you might be suffering from PTSD. These are important. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition officially recognized in 1980 to describe exposure to a relatively brief but devastating event, typically a war, a rape, an accident, or a terrorist incident. Complex PTSD is recognized in 1994 describes exposure to something equally devastating, but over a very long period of time, normally the first 15 years of life. Emotional neglect, humiliation, bullying, disruptive attachment, violence, and anger. A lot of us, as many as 20%, were wandering the world as undiagnosed sufferers of complex PTSD. We know that all isn't well, but we don't have a term to capture the problem. We don't connect up our ailments, and we have no clue who to seek out or what sort of treatment might help. So here are 12 leading symptoms of complex PTSD. You might think about which ones, if any, apply to us, and more than 7 might be a warning sign worth listening to. Firstly, a feeling that nothing is safe. Wherever we are, we have an apprehension that something awful is about to happen. We are in a state of hypervigilance. The catastrophe we expect often involves a sudden fall from grace, and humiliated and denied all access to anything kind or positive. We won't necessarily be killed, but our life will be over. People might try to reassure us, but logic doesn't help. We're in the grip of an illness. We're just confused. Second, we can never relax. This shows up in our body with permanently tense or rigid. We have trouble with being touched, turned off by certain things. Remind you of the trauma, or don't even remind you. Your body remembers. Which is why yoga and meditation and breathing exercises are so good for that. So a lot of these things are terrifying, like to be around people, to talk even. 3, we can't even really sleep. We can't fall asleep, and then we wake up early, or it's setting up a high alarm as if during rest we've let down our guard, and then now we're in even greater danger than usual. Now 4th, deepen ourselves in an appalling self-image. 5, we're very drawn to very highly unavailable people. We say we hate needy people, but what we really hate, we hate people that are too available to us. We make a beeline for people that are disengaged, won't want warmth from us, and who might be struggling with their own undiagnosed issues around avoidance. It's true. 6, we're sickened by people that want to be cozy with us. The next one is we're angry and worried, and we're always afraid that everything's going to get really bad again. We can isolate. We just feel very defenseless. We're always afraid that things are about to be awful again. 8, we are highly paranoid. It's not that we expect that other people will poison us or follow us down the street, but we just suspect that other people will be hostile to us and be looking out for opportunities to crush and humiliate us. We can be mesmerically drawn to examples of this happening on social media. The unkindest and most arbitrary environment anyone with complex PTSD confuses with the whole world, chiefly because it operates like their world, randomly and very mean. 9, we find other people so dangerous and worrying that being alone has huge attractions. You just don't want to exist anymore. Not necessarily suicidal, but the truth is, we find living so exhausting and often so unpleasant. We do sometimes long not to have to exist anymore. 11, we can't afford to show much spontaneity. We're rigid about our routines, or we're really all over the place, and we don't organize ourselves at all. So we can be very clean and like OCD even, or we can be all over the place and not able to organize ourselves or our minds at all. 12, in a bid to try to find safety, we might throw ourselves into work amassing money, fame, honor, prestige. But of course, this never works. The sense of danger and self-disgust is coming from so deep within, we can never reach a sense of safety externally. 1 million people can be cheering. One jeer will be enough to once again to evoke that self-disgust we have left unaddressed inside. Breaks from work can feel like, especially during COVID, retirement and holidays create also difficulties. So those are the symptoms. So now we know the symptoms, so what are the cures of PTSD? Partly, we need to courageously realize that we've come through something terrible that we haven't until now probably digested yet, because we haven't had a kind, stable, safe environment in which to do so. This is everything. We are a little wonky because long ago, the situation was genuinely awful. When we were small, someone made us feel extremely unsafe, even though they might have been our parents even. We were made to think about who we were was acceptable. In the name of being brave, we had to endure some very difficult separations, perhaps repeated over years. No one reassured us of our worth. We were judged with intolerable harshness. The damage may have been very obvious, but more typically, it might have unfolded in objectively innocent circumstances. A casual visitor might never have noticed. There might have been a narrative that lingered still, that we are part of a happy family. One of the great discoveries of researchers in complex PTSD is that emotional neglect within outwardly high-achieving families can be as damaging as active violence in obviously deprived families. As any of this rings bells, we should stop being brave. We should feel a compassion for who we were. It might not be easy given how hard we tend to be with ourselves. But the next step is to try to identify a good therapist or a counselor or a hypnotist that is trained to handle PTSD. Now that might be someone who's specifically trained to dealing with trauma. And that's with somebody who's has enormous amounts of compassion towards the younger self, so that you can have the courage to face the trauma and to recognize its impact on your life. Rather touchingly and simply, the rules of complex PTSD is an absence of love. And the cure for it follows the same path. We need to relearn to love someone we very unfairly hate beyond measure, ourselves. And that is the truth. And we deserve more than that. You're here. You've done a great job. You still have time to do more and a better job. I just want you to know that you're deeply and greatly loved. Wherever you are, it's enough. You are enough. And there is another side. So I see it for you. And I will hold the line for you until I can help you get over there on the other side. If these videos or these topics kind of help shed light and clarity on anything, then give me a thumbs up, like the video. If you've had experiences in your life with you or somebody else, you don't have to go into detail, but comment below. It's wonderful how sharing is part of healing. And then you start to see other people's stories and you heal a little more. So this is all part of the process. So I am very proud of you. I'm grateful to be here. If you want to see more videos like this, I said Wednesdays, but I think it's going to be Trauma Tuesdays. It's narcissist and trauma addressing Tuesdays. Toxic Trauma Tuesdays. Toxic Trauma Tuesdays. Trauma Toxic Tuesdays. That's what Tuesdays are going to be. Trauma Toxic Tuesdays. Welcome to Trauma Toxic Tuesdays. I was going to do this on Wednesdays, but now I've realized it's going to be Tuesdays because it has the T, and I like alliteration. I love alliteration. Let's just be honest. It's my thing. Anyway, so I want to say thank you so much again, from my castle to yours. You are enough. Now go out into the world and share it. Bye-bye now.